back, boys and girls. It's your main math man, Mr. Shank, coming to you live from Alameda International High School. And in this video, we're closing out this semester 1 review on page number 4 with some graphing some trig functions. So make sure that you can have some reminders for yourself. So let me actually do that first. Let me scroll down to the bottom, some things to know. So again, your functions are going to be like this. They're going to be in the form y equals a times cosine of bx, or you're going to have y equals a times sine of bx. What do those stand for? Again, it works for both these. We'd say a is amplitude, which means the max or the min, So that's just saying, what does your function go up to? So it goes up to the max, goes up to the max, or down to the min. For that value of b, that's going to be this. It's going to be your number of peaks, but it's the number of peaks from 0 degrees to 360 degrees. So be very careful. A lot of people are making mistakes because they're like, hey, it goes to 450 or 720. Make sure that you're saying, okay, b is going to be the number of peaks from 0 degrees to 360. And if you don't have that, you can use this. I can say my period is always going to be 360 degrees divided by b. So again, make sure that you're saying, okay, the period is the, let's say the distance on x-axis to get a full, let's say full rotation. So I'm saying this, normally, if both of these values are 1, I'd say, the period is 360. That means that sine function goes up to 1, down to -1, and back to 0 across the values of 360 degrees. Where if that value of b is 2, that would mean that our period is 180, and so it would make a full rotation on 180 degrees. Some other parts to remember that work for both of these is it has to start. So both of these start and end at the same y value. And that's a key part. So, make sure you're saying start and end at the same y value, start and end, and we'll say end of period. We'll say end of period. So if you're looking for those 5 values, make sure that you're saying, hey, I know that that start and end place are going to be the same. Make sure you can take, when you have your period, take your period divided by 4 to get your change in x values. So I left up a bunch of space so that way you could write this. Again, these are some nice reminders to have for yourself. Main key part to start with this is as follows. We know that for both of these, when x equals 0, so when x equals 0, what happens? We would say sine starts at y equals 0. However, when x equals 0, cosine, we'd say cosine does not start at y equals 0. So be very careful when you're thinking of this. Again, that's the main difference. Sine of x starts at y equals 0. Cosine of x does not start at y equals 0. So that's going to be our main difference when we're plotting out these functions. Okay. So again, any questions on that, please do ask. Again, that final is going to be coming up soon, so make sure you are practicing. All right, so for that first one, make sure you can use your information that you know. So we're going to say, all right, our function is y equals 3 cosine of 2x. So we're going to say our amplitude is 3, so it has to go up to 3, down to negative 3. We have our value of b as 2. So that means our period is going to be 360 divided by 2, which is 180. So that means this. I know that I have to end, so if this is my first 5 values, my 5 critical values, I know that I make a full rotation at 180 degrees. If I need to find my change in x, so I take my period, so 180, let's do 180 divided by 4. Again, 180 divided by 4 to get my change in x. So that's going to be 45 degrees. So that means this, when I go to fill out this table, I'd say, okay, hey, I have 45. What's my next value? 90, 135, and 180. So these are going to be my first 5 points to make a full rotation. Since we have cosine, we're going to say it does not start at y equals 0, so we know that this is not going to be 0. It has to start at your max. Since we have a positive cosine, we're going to say we start at 3, so we're going to start at that max. That means that we have to end at 3, so our full rotation, we have to end at 3. So real simple values when you're making that table. Again, I use this table first, then I can make those points. That way it's a little bit easier to think about. If you need to, you can kind of have this idea, okay, well, if I'm at the max, I have to go down to the min, but I have to cross over 0 first. So that means I have to hit 0, get to the min, which is negative 3, and then go back through 0 to get to positive 3. So I have my first 5 values, which I can plot out, and then make sure that you can have your full rotation, and then we have to go from 0 to 360. So I have when x equals 0, y equals 3. When x equals 45, we have y equals 0. When x equals 90, we have negative 3. When x equals 180, when we have x equals 135, there we go, y equals 0, and when x equals 180, we have positive 3. So notice how I have that, this is one rotation. We go from the max to the min, back up to the max. So that's one rotation. We said our value of b is 2, so that means from 0 to 360 I should have 2 peaks. That means that I can hit that min or max twice. Again, make sure if you're talking about cosine, you don't start with that. You don't count where you start, so I have to have it like this. Again, 225 is going to be 0, 270 is negative 3, 315 is 0, and 360 is going to be positive 3. So notice how I go down and up once, down and up a second time. So I have 2 peaks from 0 to 360. Make sure you can have, for the next one, I have sine, which starts at y equals 0. So I already have my first value in there. I know it ends at y equals 0 as well. So already 3 out of those 10 values done. What else do we have? We have amplitude as 3. We have b equals 3. And so what's going to be our period? Well, our period is going to be equal to 360 divided by 3, which is 120 degrees. If I need to find my change in x, I'm going to take 120 divided by 4, which is just going to be 30 degrees. So that's going to be my change in x. So that means I have 30, 60, 90, 120. And that makes sense because our period is 120, so I should have 5 values from 0 to 120, and then we have those full rotation. One full rotation is going to be 120 degrees. So what are going to be my y values? Well, if we're starting at 0, that means for sine we have to go, since we have positive sign, we have to go up to 3. We have to go down to -3, but we have to cross 0 first, down -3, and back to 0. And so what I can do is this: I have my values. Again, if the window isn't great, that's okay. Make sure that you are at least trying those values out. So I have at the point when x equals 0, y equals 0, when x is 30, so let's say about right there. It's not on 0, my apologies. We can go about 2/3 of the way out. Let's say when x is 30 degrees, y is 3. And we can say when x is 60, so about 1/3, we'd have y is 0. Go down to x equals 90, y equals -3, and then when x is 120, about 2/3, we'd have y equals 0 again. Make sure you can fill out the whole way from 0 to 360, so that way we have 3 peaks. So from 0 to 360, I should have those 3 peaks. So again, I would keep going. I can have, let's say 150. 150 is going to be 3. Back down to 0 at 180. At 210, we have, at 210, we have -3. And at 240, let's have like this. Let's do to the right of it. Let's do at 240, we have 0 again. Again, notice how I have one full rotation at 120, another full rotation at 240, and then one last one to 360. So we go 240, and then we go up to +3 at 270. We go 30 degrees more, so we'd be at 300. So let's say 300 at y equals 0. At 330, we'd have -3, and at 360, we would have 0. So again, several values in there. Take some practice, but that's okay. Notice from 0 to 360, I have 1, 2, 3 peaks. How can I check? Make sure that your window is set up like this. Again, if you need to pause it and make sure your window looks like this, you'll be good. Again, this window is the same as the window on paper. So what I can do, I can hit y equals, I have 3 sine of 3x. I hit graph, and so let's see, I have 1 peak, 2 peaks, 3 peaks from 0 to 360. I can hit second graph to get my table of values. Notice how it's kind of sloppy. That's okay. What you can do, make sure start at x equals 0. And notice how it says plus. Press plus to get your change in your table. So I'm going to hit plus. My change in my table is 30 degrees. And now I can have my table of values. I can notice how when x equals 0, y equals 0. When x equals 30, y equals +3, so on and so forth. So again, make sure you can use that table for yourself. Be sure to ask questions, be sure to practice, and as always, super slam that subscribe button.